Russ, so we are live now. I'm gonna make you host. Just make me co-host again.
Okay, great. There you go, Mike. Oops, did I do the right person?
Yep, right, Michael.
Good. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all this afternoon.
Hello.
Dina and Sharon and Pam and May. Yep.
May.
Tatiana, Jean, John, Bob, Myrna. And I have a Bob who doesn't look like Bob, but Susan, Leslie, iPhone, and Nancy. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Many familiar faces, but anybody new to get set up this afternoon or maybe new to travel classes? I love to have new folks come in. Fabulous, Pam. Glad to have you here. And we do have someone named iPhone, and you are okay to be iPhone if you'd like, but we'd love it if you use your name. Then we can call you by your name if you have a question. And welcome back, Norma and Nancy and Mary and Pat and Deborah. You all scoot all over the screen. As soon as I think I've got everyone identified, there's a new layout. Glad to have you all. Let's see, was there anybody that was new to get set up with this class? Okay, here's an informal poll. You can just raise a hand, or if you're not on screen, you can raise your virtual hand. How many people here have taken a class like using Gmail or Word docs or some kind of introductory tech class? Super. That's what I think we're kind of known for. And I've even taught a lot of those. They're fun to teach. Super. I'm glad to know we got people here taking those classes. And now you discover there's more to get set up than learning how to make your Facebook profile secure or how to organize the apps on your iPhone. I wonder if I should do a class on how to organize your apps on your iPhone, because I was doing a class where I was demonstrating some things on my iPhone, and someone said, how do you get those folders on there? I said, oh, you just drop them into each other and they make a folder and you can rename it. I said, oh, that'd be fun. Show us. We need a class on that. I thought, okay, well, I'll suggest it.
Yes, do that.
My wife she and I organized everything. She swipes through about 5 pages of apps on her phone to find something, and I just have 2. Now, not to brag, but I can't organize more than 2. I just can't see it. And so I've got everything into folders, so the things, they just fit on 2, and I know where they are on the screen, and I sometimes hit the wrong one. And some of them look a lot alike. On my iPhone, messages and phone calls are both green with a little white symbol, and in a hurry, I hit the wrong one, even though they're on different places on the page. Welcome, everybody. We've got quite a few folks here today. We got 28. Wow, lots of people here wanting to know how to pack everything into a carry-on for 2 weeks. You can pack everything into a backpack that weighs 15 pounds for 5 weeks if you want. I did that, not to brag. That's where I really got into this. I'll tell you all about it here in a little bit. We'll give folks joining about 1 more minute, then we're going to go ahead and start. And
Russ, I think it's easier for men to pack less than women.
I know, I hear that over and over again, but that doesn't let women off the hook. It is easier.
Only when men have to start wearing bras.
Yeah, but that's just one item. That's just one item. My wife actually packs as light as I do. She's learned. And I will tell you now, because I probably would say this in the presentation. My eye-opening moment was when I discovered that an Airbnb, well, it was before this, but the point that it really hit it was when I was staying in an Airbnb in Frankfurt, and I realized it was on like the 5th floor or the 6th floor, and there was no elevator, and I had to carry both our bags up. And I thought, I didn't think about this. There was nothing in the instruction. If there was anything in the profile about being on the 5th or 6th floor, I missed it. So you'll see. I'll tell you, it's not just about volume, it's about weight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you.
Russ?
Yes.
Mary Virginia, my big challenge is packing orthopedic appliances, back braces, knee braces, because those seem to take up so much space that it actually, the basic clothing or even a book or two is one thing, but when I start adding in all the orthopedic appliances is where it gets weird.
Well, that's going to add stuff. I will admit that. I will admit that. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Oh, there we go. And you should see something that says how to pack a carry-on for a 2-week trip. I'm your guide, Russ Eanes. I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is in the Shenandoah Valley, which is Western Virginia, not to be confused with West Virginia. I'm a writer, a walker, and a cyclist. I formerly was a book publisher, and I love to work with authors and help them shape their ideas into books. I'm now a full-time guide with Get Set Up, and I love the energy I get from working with older learners. Get Set Up helps you learn useful skills from people like you, so you can do wonderful things. We already talked about basic things like Gmail and how to use Google Docs, but there's all sorts of stuff you can learn, and I encourage you to take as many classes as you can because they're all free. During our classes, we learn from each other, so I always have a lot of discussion and question and answer. Ideally, we can see you and your cameras are on. You can request a recording of this class afterwards. You email help@getsetup.io. We do have a TA with us today, and he can also help you with some of these questions if you have them, tech questions or practical questions about classes. If anyone's joining by live stream, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class, and you get to be here live and ask questions. Lastly, Get Set Up's not paid to promote any specific products, and I know I will mention a few specific products today, but I'm not being paid to promote those. Okay, this is a basic carry-on suitcase. It's 22 inches by 14 inches by 9 inches. I'm sorry, I don't have that down in centimeters. Metric system. That is the allowance most airlines give you for a carry-on in their overhead compartments. Now, just one little warning here about carry-ons, especially when it comes to international flights. What you can put in the overhead compartment on a carry-on or what you can carry on the plane isn't always limited to the size of your bag, the volume of it. It also might be limited by weight. I once got caught by Lufthansa trying to fly back from Germany. I had a piece to go underneath the seat in front of me, and I had a carry-on bag to go overhead, and they asked me, could I kindly weigh them this is at the gate, and I put them on the scales, and they said, you have too much weight here. We're gonna have to check your bag. So check your airline regulations before you assume that any carry-on is only just about size. Most domestic flights, I believe, give you about 30 pounds in a carry-on. So it's pretty hard to pack more than 30 pounds in a carry-on. Let me show you one last thing about my carry-on here. And that is right here. This is my standard carry-on bag. This one right here, you see pictured, is my Travel Pro bag with 2 wheels, and I'll explain more about that later. I have a couple of identifying things on there. I have a red carabiner attached to a strap. The strap's also so I can put a briefcase on there if I want to. or hang something off the edge of the carry-on. But also, even though this is a carry-on and I'm going to be taking it on and off an airplane myself, sometimes you have to gate check a bag at the gate, and everybody's got black suitcases. And so I've had someone accidentally walk off with my bag. Unfortunately, I spotted it with that red carabiner. I said, "Excuse me, I think you have my bag." And they were embarrassed. "Oh, I'm sorry." And they handed it to me and I went off. So always have something identifiable on your bag. Even if it's a carry-on, you think the only person who's ever going to handle it is yourself. Now, carry-ons come in a couple different types. There are spinners, which have 4 wheels on the bottom like this, and those wheels rotate. And then they're called the rollerboards. That's this one right here with 2 big wheels on the back. Now, let me go back to this spinner for a minute. The spinner, because an airline restricts you to this overall size of the bag, those wheels at the bottom count as part of the length of the bag. So I always warn people that a spinner, while having certain advantages in airports and on airplanes, do have slightly less space. And if you're worried about exactly how much volume you have in your bag, a rollerboard will have more volume if it has wheels like this. The other difference between a spinner and a rollerboard, let me pop back to the spinner for a second. These tend to be very light duty wheels. They're not real super strong. They're great for rolling through airports. They're really good when you have to roll it down the aisle of an airplane because you can kind of set it on the ground in front of you and push it. Very nice. They're good for going through hotel lobbies. But if you have to drag it down a sidewalk a half a mile in an old city somewhere or over cobblestones, they can break. That's why I like rollerboards right here that have bigger wheels. And they are also, by the way, inset into the bag. So you get that full length of the bag like this if you're being a stickler about size on an airplane, and some airlines are. My rollerboard also is expandable. So it's got an extra set of zippers right here. The thing can expand about 2 inches, making it wider. That might be tough to get in that carry-on over the airplane. Of course, I'm about to teach you about how not to stuff your carry-on. But my wife and I have a strategy where sometimes we bring souvenirs or gifts back from our travel, and we want to have some extra space in our carry-on bag. And it's nice to have it expandable because sometimes we might check a carry-on for the way home, not the way over. But this is your standard rollerboard, has a zipper along the side and opens up. Most of us have them. Mine also has a couple zipper pouches at the top right here, and that's handy for putting little things in at the airport. If you want to keep your cell phone or your charging equipment or a book or something in there, it's really nifty to put it in there. Now, when you're thinking about a bag, you want to think about the wheels. So I told you spinner wheels are good for airports and airplanes. One other thing to make sure about a bag, and I actually did research before I bought my bag. I used to travel for 7 years. I traveled on an airplane almost once a month for work, and I learned to take a carry-on. That's because I sometimes had my bag not make it, so I always took carry-ons, and I did have a carry-on, a cheaper carry-on, a rollerboard with these wheels in the back wear out on me. So I researched it, and I looked for what are the bags that have the best wheels so that you can go down the city streets in old European cities or through South America where I've been with a rollerboard and drag it and not have the wheels give out of you. But as I was researching it, I also found that zippers matter. And actually, I kind of know that because I once worked in an industrial sewing shop. And heavy duty zippers like YKK, for example, is a good brand, are also important because your zippers can give out on you in a suitcase, any kind of suitcase. And there's nothing worse than being on a flight somewhere or about to go on a flight or coming back for a flight and discover that your zippers popped apart, especially if you're, got a lot of stuff in that bag. And I've seen that happen to people. Unfortunately, their bag kind of break apart because the zipper broke. So I would say, in my opinion, if you plan to use your rollerboard or your carry-on a fair amount, spend a little bit more. You don't have to spend a fortune. I think this bag cost me maybe $100 or a little bit less. You can really spend something like about that much. Mine also has a long telescoping handle. You can see the inside frame of the handle inside the bag right here. A long telescoping handle is really nice for pulling, but it's also really nice for attaching things. I used to attach a briefcase to mine when I traveled. for work. Now, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I would put in a suitcase. And I know there's women in this class, so I'm going to show you what a woman would put in one, because I had my wife pack some things for a 2-week trip. And I know that I do a lot of trekking, but the kind of clothing I take on a trip, even when I'm not going to be trekking or walking somewhere, is the same kind of clothing I would take on a 2-week trip. So I've got here some outerwear. I've got a light down puffer jacket, doesn't weigh very much, rolls up real tightly. I've got a rain jacket that is breathable. I've got a fleece. I've got a lightweight windbreaker, which folds up into its own pocket. I've got a cap and an umbrella. So they all roll up very nicely like that. This is my windbreaker. It folds up into its one of its pockets. Makes it very handy to stuff inside something quickly if you need to. Got everything else rolled up. The rest of my clothing, I have some underwear, handkerchiefs. I have an extra pair of either pants or shorts. In this case, they're shorts. An extra shirt. Of course, remember you wear clothing. So I've got an outer shirt and an undershirt, and I've got a spare undershirt and something for sleeping in. 3 pairs of socks, some lounge pants, and then one of my favorite things, which I call the quarter zip. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And that all rolls up very nicely. And I tuck them into these little spots in between the telescoping handles of my suitcase. And a lot of carry-ons are like that. Then I laid the next layer of clothing on top, and then I topped it all off with my outerwear and an LL Bean toiletry kit. And you can see it all fits very nicely inside that carry-on. I'll show you some of the other stuff later that I would put in, the electronics and other stuff. I just want to show you how it can very easily fit in for 2 weeks. I could even put in a bit more items of clothing if I wanted to, another hat and an extra pair of shoes, which I don't have here. I carry usually on a trip a pair of sandals and a pair of hiking shoes, and that's it. Even if I'm in a city somewhere, I don't need anything more than that. When you're packing and looking for things, I always think in terms of layers, and I look for things that quick dry, because I hand wash a lot of my clothes, mostly my clothes when I travel. I've learned to do that over the years. And I also think of wicking. Now that picture of me there's got one of my favorite articles of clothing. I'm even wearing it today. It's the famous quarter zip. This is a very lightweight piece of clothing. It's got a blend of cotton and artificial fibers. And not only does it wick, but it also dries very quickly. It's great. It's UV rated, so it's like UV 50. And I have several of these. I have one that's almost kind of off-white that's nice to wear in the sun, so it does sun blocking. And you can put them over shirts. You can over like a button-down shirt. You can put it over just a t-shirt. And they make them for women, by the way. This is one that I found at LL Bean for about $70. My wife has one of these. And hers even has those little thumb things on the ends of the sleeves to hold your sleeves down all the way. And it also has a really nice feature that I like, which is the breast pocket right here, the zipper. And that's where you can stash something you want to keep safe when you're traveling. So this is one of my favorite articles of clothing. I have these in all different weights, and they make them for men and for women. And they're not necessarily expensive at all. LL Bean, REI, your local outfitter shop. I mean, even the Dick's Sporting Goods or any place that sells active clothing will have these, and they're not expensive. And I really recommend them. Now, I asked my wife to prepare the same thing. So there's a little trick that you may have heard of. It's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 items of socks, underwear, 4 tops, 3 bottoms, 2 pairs of shoes, and 1 hat. So assuming my wife on a trip would wear a pair of shoes on her feet, this is what she would have for that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So she laid them out on the bed, and then she rolled them up into her suitcase and put them also into the little same idea, set them into the wells of the suitcase in nice, neat rolls. She threw her shoes in here, and some people you can even be a little more efficient. You can stuff things in the shoes to save space if you need to. In her case, she didn't do that. She put all her underwear and socks in a nice little bag like this, little packing cube they call them. and then rolled up her pants and tossed in her hat. She'd only filled up half the carry-on. So she got a lot of articles of clothing in there. And of course, she's got a toiletry kit just like I do. And women I know bring more things than men. I get all that. But it's very doable if you want to. I'll pause for some questions here in 1 second. I am just going to show you a few other items you might want for packing to organize. I have these colored stuff sacks of all varieties. They're different colors for the different sizes, and I like them. And sometimes I organize my stuff into stuff sacks. I've done it so many years that I know that red means things for bedtime, like my lounge pants, a t-shirt, medications, that kind of stuff all goes in there. So again, you just can organize your bag with stuff sacks like this. They're very inexpensive. You can buy them online. My wife and I each have a toiletry kit from LL Bean that hangs up. It even has a little mirror that goes with it. I really love these things. They have all sorts of nifty compartments in them, and they fold up very nicely. You can also purchase packing cubes of different sizes if you like to organize your things. If you're not bringing too much and you really can get it all easily in the bag and don't need to kind of stuff things away in little corners, I like the idea of stuff sacks and packing cubes because I like to keep my stuff kind of organized. These packing cubes have kind of a mesh window so you can see what's in them. And I pack them in such a way that I can take a glance at them and know what's in each of those packing cubes. Generally, I don't take more than 2 myself because I like the stuff sacks for things. And we also have some smaller packing bags that have mesh sides like this with zippers. And we have one that's a first aid kit and a couple extra items. And of course, always bring along 1 or 2 extra Ziploc baggies because you might find yourself needing to remove toiletries somewhere. I travel in the US on a plane and I have TSA pre-check, which means I don't have to remove the liquids from my bag. I don't have to remove my electronics, my laptop, my iPad. I don't have to take off my shoes. However, TSA pre-check does me no good when I'm in Ireland heading back to the US. They could care less about TSA pre-check. They want to know, where are the toiletries, take out the liquids, take this, that, and the other thing. So I always carry along an extra bag or 2 or even 3. Hey, you can give one to somebody else who's suddenly clueless at the gate, check somewhere else who doesn't know what to do to put with their liquids. Let me pause at this point. I've kind of run through the basic packing, how I get lightweight things in and put them in a bag, and let me field some questions. So why don't you put up a virtual hand raise through the reaction button, and that'll kind of queue up the questions. Myrna.
What were those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1s again?
I'll give them to you in the notes, but they are 5 pairs of underwear and socks, okay, underclothing, 4 tops,
Okay.
3 bottoms, so that's pants or shorts, 2 shoes or sandals, and 1 hat. Now, I'm a bald guy, so I get to take 2 hats. And I do. It's a general rule. Honestly, I think that's almost a little too much. And I know people I don't mean to be a packing curmudgeon, but I've learned over the years that it's more about the weight than the volume. And I don't think I rarely hear people tell me I didn't pack enough stuff for this trip. What I hear is, why did I bring all this stuff along? And when I walked across Spain, I know this is a different story, walking with a backpack of 15 pounds, 500 miles. But the most famous part of walking that route, the Camino de Santiago, are the stories of pilgrims who had to get rid of stuff. And they didn't struggle with like, oh, I wish I had this. Oh, I wish I had that. They struggled with, I brought all of this along. Now what do I do with it? They've got some precious item they brought from home and they don't want to carry it along with them and then figure out, can I get rid of it or not? So I think it's the same thing when you're packing a carry-on for a trip. Go for less stuff and lighter weight. Don't forget that when you have stuff in a carry-on and you're on the airplane, you got to hoist that up over your head into a compartment. And
Yes.
I have seen people struggle with that. And I have seen people, to their own embarrassment, drop their bag on the head of somebody else, which is why I always like to get on the plane early and get mine up above the slot where I'm sitting so I don't accidentally hit somebody. So anyway, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'll give you that in the notes, and some links to some articles about how to pack. And I'll tell you, every article I've seen about how to pack less stuff in a trip always emphasizes taking less stuff. John says he also takes a backpack as his personal bag so he can put it under the seat. I totally agree with you. Actually, when my wife and I travel overseas now, we put everything in our backpacks like we were going to go on a 2-week walk or trek. More questions at this point. I've got more to show you, and I'll come back for more questions later. Yes, Mary.
What do you, I mean, I've always heard through the years that you roll certain things and then there's other things that you lay flat or that you roll around something else. And what's your thought on rolling versus flattening versus rolling over something else?
I roll everything individually. Believe it or not, depending on how long it's in there, rolled things usually don't get as wrinkly as things that might be laid flat. That's my experience, just because things are laid flat and then maybe you haven't got them folded as neatly as you thought. Whereas when you roll it up, it tends to roll a lot of the wrinkles out. Not all of them, but, and then I often take things out once they're rolled up and let them flatten out when I get somewhere. You know, I don't think that a rolled item by itself takes up any more space than rolling it around something. Yeah, I've heard the roll around, and those are all okay. They're not bad advice. But I think rolling allows you to take advantage of more space. And even when I've used those packing cubes, I've rolled them up and stuffed them in the cubes. A good rule of thumb is lay out everything you want to take and then sit and then ask yourself, which of these things can I not take along? I'll come back for some more questions. You can continue to put questions in the chat, by the way, as I'm going, because I've got some more things to show you about how you can get everything in a carry-on bag for a 2-week trip. And someone asked the question, what tech items do you take? I'm going to show you that. That's the next thing, because tech items can be the heaviest things. They're very heavy. So here's a smattering of stuff that I take that has tech items. I'll show you some of these individually. This is my camera. I carry the Sony DX100. It's actually a very compact but very powerful little camera. And it comes in a case. This is the cover that goes over the camera. I've got a battery. This is a backup battery. I have these in different sizes. This is the smallest one. I have a bigger one. This one will charge a cell phone completely up from 0 to 100, typical iPhone, and I have the iPhone. I have a larger one that will do about 2.5 charges of a cell phone. You can buy packs that go around a cell phone. I like this pack, these separate batteries, because I sometimes use them to charge my camera. I also have varying types of wall adapters. If I'm in the US, I just need the standard 110 wall adapter here. And then this little white cable is a cable for my camera. And of course, the long cable is the cable for my phone. I carry the shorter cable, like 36 inches, because it weighs less. And these two things, I'll show you these later. These are wall adapters for Europe, for the continent, the EU. And they're special. They're like a wall adapter for the US. The only difference is they just have the 2 prongs. So you really just need to carry that if you're going to the continent. This is an example of the adapter you use for England, the UK, and Ireland. They have a big 3-prong because I think they're 220 or 240 volt. And I put my earbuds in a little baggie like this is a little Ziploc bag. And this is my other camera. So I'm a photographer, a bit of a photographer. So I take 2 cameras. They're both small for travel. This one's in its own little case. This is a stuff sack. I'll show you the stuff sack later. It opens up into a knapsack. That's one of the best things I ever got. It's an Osprey. Cost about $30. This is a little bag right here that has some more camera gear in it, like things for cleaning my lenses, extra batteries, and a small tripod. And then this is my beloved 500-liter bottle. And I say my beloved, you can get these anywhere. I think this had some kind of Italian sparkling water in it. I often pick these up, drink whatever's in them, have some sparkling water, and then use that as my water bottle on the rest of a trip. Because if I lose it, who cares? And they don't weigh much. And you can get 2 or 3 of them and then add or subtract water as you want. And again, because you bought it as a disposable water bottle, you won't mind it if you lose it. I'm not in favor of bottled water. I think we should drink tap water when we can. I think plastic's a waste, but a few of these every now and then is okay. Just to zero in on the electronics right here, these are these European adapters I have right here. So this kind of standard wall charger that we have, wall adapter, I should say, for an iPhone, this is what one looks like in Europe. So it has the same kind of USB slot in the top and just goes straight in the wall. If I'm going to the continent, I won't bother with this thing from the US. I just take these guys along because that's what I'm going to be plugging into in Europe. And in the US, if my device needs charging, I charge it before I leave home, and then I use my battery on the way if I need it. And of course, in an airplane, you can charge it. So really, if you're traveling from the US, you shouldn't need to take along these extra adapters or things for a foreign country. You can get the same kind of thing here that I use for the continent. You can get for using in the UK. This one right here is similar to this one, but this one has 3 USB ports in it. So you can charge a camera and a phone and whatever else you want.
Russ, I got 2 questions.
Okay, let me pause here and check into the chat for the questions. Oops, someone may come back here.
One's from Susan, one's from Nancy.
Okay. Let's check the question. Susan, do you wear the same 3 or 4 outfits for 14 days? Are you doing laundry? The answer is yes. I wear the same 2 or 3 outfits for 14 days. I hand wash, and then once a week, my wife and I combine things and we wash things together in a washing machine and then hang them up to dry. And so I hope that answers that. I know, and so bring a 3rd top along if you want to look like a little different. Like I wasn't wearing the same clothes every day, but it's more about the places you visited than the clothing you were wearing when you were there, from my opinion. I think my wife would probably say the same thing, but she's not here. And Nancy asked, do the portable chargers have to be dual voltage for EU? Let me back up to that one a second. Oops, we've gone too far. These things right here, these adapters are set. They're all set for the EU. So the EU has the same voltage level we do. The UK has a higher level of voltage, but their wall adapters would be set for using in the UK.
I didn't answer my question right.
Okay.
So the portable charger for your phone, the Dynex, right?
Yes.
The one that'll charge your phone. Once it runs out of power, you got to recharge it.
Yes.
So is it a dual voltage thing? Just like the phone's dual voltage, right?
No, the same adapter that I plug in here to the wall to charge my phone. I take the USB and put it into the Dynex and charges the Dynex back up.
So it's not an issue with the voltage.
It's not an issue.
I don't understand why though. It must be dual voltage, I guess. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sure. I've now switched up because in 2019, I went to Italy and took a laptop and really regretted that I had all that weight with me. So I now have an iPad mini. So my iPad mini has to have a slightly larger wall adapter. Okay. And if you're in the continent, there's a little thing that snaps out of here that would be the same adapter for plugging into the 110 volt in the US. And you can get the same kind of thing for the wall charging on the continent. So I would swap that out. And this would be all I would need then, because this will also do my cell phone and my camera and my battery. I like to bring along.
This looks real small. Is it as small as the phone?
No, this is a little bit bigger than the phone. So this would be in place of using the adapters for the phone.
I mean the iPad mini.
The iPad mini is bigger than a phone. You
Okay.
can see this is a small paperback book here. This is what they call
Oh,
a
okay, the book. All right.
this is a mass market paperback,
Okay.
and you can see how big it is in comparison to that. And
Okay.
I do put some reference books things on my iPad. I like guidebooks, but I don't like carrying them along. They're heavy. And you can buy, for example, let's say you like Rick Steves, you can buy Rick Steves guidebooks and put them on your iPad and read them there. That's actually a good way to do it. I do blogging. I'm going to buy a Bluetooth keyboard. I don't have one, a fold up lightweight Bluetooth keyboard, but I would bring that along too. And I buy a cheap paperback that I don't care if I lose by accident or leave somewhere, if it gets beaten up or gets water damaged. I think I bought this online for $1. It's a classic Italian novel. So the last time I went to Italy, I thought I want to read about Italy while I'm in Italy. So I brought bread and wine along. Another trick I have, I showed you that stuff sack somewhere else, but you can see how small it is. It's just a little bit bigger than my fist, and I actually can compress it to something the size of my fist. And we also bring along a foldable duffel bag, very lightweight. And here's the reason why. The duffel bag can get huge. I mean, you can hardly see how big it is, but it gets almost 24 inches long and 12 inches wide and about 12 inches high. You can stuff tons of things in there for the way back. So my wife and I will often buy an article of clothing and or some gifts for our children for Christmas when we're traveling. And we'll put them in our regular carry-on to put on the airplane because we want to make sure they get home safely. And we put other stuff in our duffel bag. Or like when we've gone trekking in Italy or somewhere or in Spain, our hiking poles will fit inside this. And then you fold it up when you're done, it folds back up like this over here. So it's very small, very lightweight. And the stuff sack here, I'm wearing it on the front because if you're on a bus or somewhere like that, and you're worried about pickpockets, you can put the stuff sack in front of you. I never put valuables in this backpack when I'm traveling though. Even if I'm in a big city, I just put in maybe a water bottle and a jacket or something like that. I'm going to stop sharing at this point and let's go back and let's do a little Q&A because I know you got all sorts of questions. And I realize there's a lot of women here and women pack differently than men. But my wife has learned over the years, again, because the weight matters. And we both would say that the less stuff you have along, the less there is to keep organized because, I mean, we're traveling to enjoy the experience of where we are. We're not traveling to keep track of our stuff that we might bring with us. And also, if you pack light, you can bring some things back with you. We both have some treasured items of clothing that we've bought on trips. If you go to Ireland and get one of those sweaters that they knit from the island of Iran, that's a great item to bring home, a really warm wool sweater from Ireland. I wear that at home every day. That's the kind of thing I bought on my trip. And because I didn't bring that much stuff with me, there was plenty of room to bring it home. Comments or questions?
I actually had a relative send me, the drama horses in Sweden. I had it packaged up, and all she had to do was send it to my home. The problem was, it turned out okay, but the problem was she tried to deliver it while we were still on vacation because we went to Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. So my Swedish relative sent it in the mail. I mean, that's a way to get some of this stuff home too. If you buy, like I bought quite a number of these to give them to relatives and things. So mail it to yourself.
And you can bring home bottles of wine. I have got a special bag that you can put. It's a bag you can insert a bottle in, and you can seal it shut. And if the bottle breaks, it'll absorb everything in the bottle. I used to buy a bottle while I was traveling and then take it home. And last couple of times, I decided I wasn't going to do that, and I spent a couple extra euros at the airport and bought the exact same thing I could have bought while I was on a winery tour at the airport. Sure, I spent a few extra dollars, but it went through customs and they handed it to me on the airplane in a bag. And then I could put it in my rollerboard safely on the airplane and then just haul it home. So I've done that, and I understand. We brought home bottles of vinegar and things like that, special stuff, olive oil. Those are all nice to buy. My advice: spend a few extra dollars or euros or pounds at the airport and get it there. They'll take it right through customs. They'll bring it on the airplane. You don't have to worry about the issues of liquids and all that stuff on your bag, and then you can then you have it when you get off the plane. More questions? I know there have to be questions out there.
Have you ever run into the problem of them not accepting what was in your carry-along and you had to get rid of it or, whatever? No?
I have not. I also have global entry. And when I come back to the US, I skip the lines and go to the kiosk and put down my fingerprints and slide in my passport. And within about 3 minutes, I'm off through customs to the baggage claim if I check something back. My rule is—
How do you get that? How do you get the global entry? What does that mean, and how do you get it?
It is a special program from the US government, Customs and Border Patrol. And basically they check you out, and if you look safe, they'll give you global entry. And the nice thing about global entry is that if you get global entry and it costs $100 for 5 years, you also get TSA pre-check with it. You can apply separately for TSA pre-check by itself. I think it costs $85 for 5 years. Well, why not just spend an extra $15 and get global entry if you're planning to travel? If you're not planning on traveling out of the country, that's fine. But just to give you a couple stories about why I've learned some of these things. In 2014, my wife and I flew to Colombia and to visit our son for 2 weeks. Then we came home. We came home through El Salvador. Our flight in El Salvador, where we got on a different flight, was delayed about 5 hours. And so we were planning on getting in, well, it might have even been 6 or 7 hours. It was a long time. We were planning on getting in mid-evening, like 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And we didn't get in until after midnight. It might have been 1 a.m. We were beat. We got down to Customs and Border Control in the US. And even though we were the only flight getting in right then, there were 200 people in line. And we waited over an hour in the middle of the night to get, waved through finally with our stamped and passports and everything, and then picked up our bag and then had to drive home 2 hours. That was when somebody said to me, "Why don't you get global entry?" TSA pre-check comes with it, because I was traveling so much for work. One of my actually the chairman of the chair of our board of directors said to me, "You're traveling so much. Why don't you have TSA pre-check? That saves you 15, 20 minutes every time you fly, each way." So I got both. And so I've skipped the lines from then on. It's worth it. To give you one other, so that's kind of my horror story. And I know people have been through worse.
I don't know how I got it, but I do sometimes get the TSA pre-check. Do you think it's my age or what? I mean, I'm not paying anything extra.
Yeah, that is random.
Okay.
Do you travel with someone who has it?
No.
Okay. I know my wife, before my wife got it, she got it with me sometimes. Sometimes the airlines give it to you when you're older. I mean, I remember when I was not yet 60, I was probably 55, and I was going through the security check at the airport, and there was a sign that said, "If you're over 70, you don't have to take off your shoes." And I thought, well, now I got something to look forward to in life.
That is good.
Well, Garrison Keillor said we're all safer because the grandmothers of America are taking off their shoes at security checks and in the airports. I won't go into that. May, I want to come to your question 1 minute. I'll give you one other pointer about why I do a carry-on. The two reasons are, when I get to an airport, my destination, I want to just walk off the plane with my bag, go to what I'm doing next. Second reason is I want to make sure my bag is with me. Because it takes time at baggage claim to get your bag, but your bag is there because you've got it getting off the airplane. I had a work colleague who went on a 2-week tour of the UK and Ireland with her husband, and they did about a day, in each place, and they were going all around every day. They were moving something new by bus. They checked a bag because they checked 2 suitcases, and they had a leg that they had to fly from like Washington or Pittsburgh to New York and New York to London. And when they got to London, their bags weren't there, neither bag. And the tour company says, well, we're leaving this afternoon, so you need to, we'll get the bags. The airline will send your bags tomorrow. So they bought some extra clothing. They took off with the tour company. The next day, the airline did send their bags to the place they'd been the day before. And they went through a hassle with the airline to get them then sent from that place to the next place. Their bags followed them. This is no joke, a day behind them for 2 weeks. When they arrived back home 2 weeks later in the US, the next day, their bags that were supposed to accompany them finally arrived back in the US, never opened.
Wow.
So I've always said, you're investing in a trip and an experience. Do everything you can to make sure that experience is as stress-free as possible. And that's why I carry on, because then when I get to my destination, I've got my bag with me. May.
Hi, I forgot to unmute myself. I want to ask you, so when you're traveling, is there any like events that you wanted to go and it requires you to wear something that's more formal? And if that's the case, to go to like a fine dining restaurant or to a theater, and how do you pack those stuff in if you want to get that kind of experience as well and wear those kind of clothes? Because what I see you've packed, it's great, but if you want to do something that might require those kind of clothing and stuff, wouldn't it be a little bit problematic?
It would be, but they do make clothing like that. I didn't show it because I don't have one and take it with me, but there's a very nice men's blazers. They would make them for women as well that are packable and travel. You can fold them up like that and take them out and they'll be wrinkle free. Same thing with trousers. So actually you can take some nicer clothing with you if you want. And it costs a little bit more, but you're probably spending a little bit more to go to a finer dining or something like that. And maybe Carol's question about packing for New York dinner theater week, you're probably going to do the same thing. One other bit of advice, if you're in the US and you're traveling from a destination within the US, you may not be on the plane all that long. I mean, if you're flying coast to coast, okay. But still, you might be 2, maybe 3 hours in the plane. Wear your nice clothes on the plane. And you don't have to worry about folding them up. I mean, I used to, because for business, I used to have to occasionally wear a nice jacket and a tie, and I would wear those through the airport. Here's a hint. I got better treatment when I was dressed up. The guys at security saw me coming with a tie and the suit coat, and they let me go through. I don't know. I didn't think it was fair, but they did. So I used to do that sometimes just to get better treatment at the security if I was in a hurry. So my advice would be in the US, wear those things on the plane. And then you can just take them off when you get where you're going and change into something else. But then you have them, and that would be how I would do that. Mary says, how do you protect breakables such as family artifacts that you might be given on a family visit? Wrap them up very carefully. I'm not joking, in either bubble wrap or in some nice articles of clothing, and put them down into your carry-on. I've never had anything break if it was nestled inside the carry-on because the top is cushioned. And if you have it in the carry-on, it's with you the whole time. So you don't have to worry about, how are those baggage handlers people handling it? Alma asks, any tips for golf bags? We check luggage, or I have to wait on my husband's golf bag. I can't give you an answer to that one. You're going to have to check the golf clubs. And if you want to go ahead and check a bag, that's fine. That's just the way it is. And they don't make folding golf clubs, I guess. Even the hiking poles that I carry on my trips to Europe when I've gone hiking, they don't allow those on a carry-on. I have to check that. So that's what I have that duffel bag for. My wife and I usually stick an item or two of clothing in with our hiking poles in the duffel bag. Last question, Nancy.
I just read a tip on some travel guide I follow. You rent surfboards, because that was an issue. How do I get my surfboard? Because somebody wanted to go somewhere and surf. There are people who rent their surfboards now, and there's probably people who rent golf clubs now. So that takes that whole issue out if you can live without your golf club for this new experience.
Well, all golf courses rent clubs.
Oh, they do?
Oh yeah. So that's actually, that answers that as well. Good tip. I mean, I don't want to riff on anyone who wants to take their own clubs along. I'm really out of time, and I'll take these last two questions. Tatiana.
I use the CPAP machine. Does it consider carry out or it's additional?
Which machine?
Sleep app machine, breathing machine.
Are you talking about the thing for
sleep apnea?
For sleep apnea?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an extra item you've got to bring along, and you may have to check that.
It might be considered
when I
a medical device.
When I went to the Caribbean, it was not considered another device.
You mean I can still take carry out plus the
Yes.
breathing machine?
Yes.
Okay.
But check with your airlines. It might be different with different airlines.
Good question. Good answer, Cease. One thing you can always do, if you ever have a question about whether something you're taking in a carry-on is going to be allowed, I would go first to the ticket window, the ticket counter at the airport, and ask. I've had some rude awakenings at the security and at the gate because of something I had in a bag or was going to take with me, including once having to take a bag all the way out through security and check it. So whenever I'm in doubt, I always ask at
But ask ahead of time. Ask ahead of time. Ask the airlines instead, so you're not surprised when you get there.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I thank you all for being in this class, and we'll be doing it again and again. So you can come back and watch the tips. You can also check the video on this. And I appreciate the tips you gave each other in the class. And you'll get some notes with some of these pointers in an email following up. And I love feedback from you. Let me know how the class went and anything we can do to improve it. I always appreciate that. And I hope to see you all in some more classes. I'm going to say, have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.